So he represents that part of ourselves. You think of yourself as, you might have been raised in a religious experience or environment, and you sort of intellectually were given whatever the principles or whatever the teachings or whatever the dynamics were in that, and you believe that. That's what you live your life by, and that's Saul. That's when we're Saul, we are living our life by those principles or those teachings that we grew up with, and we have not yet understood them. We have not yet understood how they live in our life, and so we sort of blindly just follow them because such and such said that they were true. You ever heard yourself say that? Well, Father Joe said blah, 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 and so you just accept it because Father Joe is a figure of authority. Well, that's Paul. That's Saul. And so when he started persecuting the Christians, he was acting out of that intellectual understanding. And yet he had all this power and energy and dynamic. And so when we move beyond that, when we have a transformational experience in our life, when the idea becomes integrated in our heart, when we feel life, when we feel the connection, when we recognize who we are, when we understand that we are more than just physical, intellectual beings, that we are spiritual beings, and that these principles are there to help us, guide us, live our life, to help us to be more than we have realized we could be. When we realize that, then we move from Saul to Paul. When we bring Saul, which is will, the will to move forward, when we bring understanding to will, we become Paul. We make that transformation in our life because we understand what we're here for. We understand how the principles show up in our life. We understand all those things. And yet, the transformations that occur, at least in my experience, very few of them have been one-moment experiences. 1 minute experiences. They are more of a process. It's like you have an awakening. Like, for example, Saul had this experience, but he wasn't done with his transformation. That was just a moment that got him on the path, and then he had to go from there. He went back and he met with Ananias, and the scales fell from his eyes. He could see again. But then he had to go deal with the reality that he had changed positions. And in our culture, it's like Osama bin Laden wanting to become a citizen of our country and start preaching whatever it is that we preach. I mean, that's the reality of it. That's the transformation. That's a pretty big transformation. It would be a little hard for us to kind of accept that. Do you hear that? Might be a little tough, for us to kind of get in relationship to that. Well, that's what happened with the disciples. So Paul had to go to the disciples and say, well, I'm a convicting and binding and, all this stuff to the folks, and they're not real comfortable with that. Plus, he's got the Jewish people upset with him. The leaders of the Jewish community, because he's abandoned them. Now he's on the other side. What's going on here? So they're upset. So here's Paul kind of in between worlds. And when we go in between worlds, a lot of times that's what happens in our transformative moments, is that we're sort of on a plateau of aloneness, and we really don't have a community that we're really connected with or that is supporting us at that moment. It's like, when you're practicing alcoholic and then you sober up, make that decision, and you can no longer hang around your drinking buddies, because that's not going to work for you, and you're still not connected with the next group. Say you're going to AA, well, you're still not quite there. It takes a while to sort of become part of a group, become part of something. So you're in that kind of that middle space, and that's the space where transformation begins to become rooted in something solid. That's where we begin to really understand who it is that we are as we move through our life experience. For me, the journey of connecting will to understanding is a long, continuous journey that occurs in me all the time. Every day, it's a new kind of experience. It's a new reality. It's a new awakening. It's where my Sunday sermons come from. Because if we pay attention to our life, every single one of us, that I don't have any more profound or unusual experiences than any one of you. that you have them all in your life every single day. It's the reality is that it's important for us to pay attention to them, because it's where the depth of wisdom comes from in our life experience. It's like a marriage, and it's about patience and persistence. So the journey of transformation is a journey of patience and persistence. It's staying with it, it's asking questions, it's being present with it all the time, and it's knowing that it's not a one-day process. I had an interesting experience a week ago Thursday. I was involved, I have been for a little while, involved in this real estate transaction that I've been trying to get kind of together and bring together. And it was sort of bringing me on the journey of my will, that it seemed like it wasn't flowing. Do you know what I mean? It's like it just wasn't, I wasn't getting the kind of response from, I had this loan that I was trying to get, and they just weren't being helpful, you know? And I don't know if it's the change, it must be the change in the economy and the change in all the banking stuff, all that stuff, but I wasn't getting the kind of support that I'm accustomed to. The kind of, gee, I'm glad to have you as a client, I'm accustomed to. You know, it was like they didn't want to, it's like they didn't want to give this thing, you know. And it was really frustrating me because it was the first time I've ever had that kind of experience. And they kept asking for things over and over and over again. And there were other people involved in this thing, and it was getting embarrassing. And, you know, all of the stuff that kind of shows up. And, of course, all that dynamic was creating in me more will, more push, you know. And so I'm writing pointed emails, you know, to the, you know, which I'm sure weren't helpful, but they made me feel better in the moment, you know what I mean? It's like, and so finally, a week ago Thursday, finally, you know, I kind of reached the apex of my frustration. The point at which, you know, either I shoot myself in the foot or God shows up, one of the two, or both, I don't know. But anyway, so at that moment I said, you know, I've got to let go of this. Because it was consuming my time. It was taking more time than I had to give. It was, you know, all this stuff. And so I have to let go of this. I said, I can't control this process. You know, we hit that point. And that's the point where will and understanding, where we move from Saul to Paul, where it has to come together for us. And at that point when it comes together, and it came together for me, I could relax. I could just breathe for a moment. And I just said, and I sent an email to the folks, and I said, I give up. Either say yes or no, but give me something, please. I give up. And I did. I gave up. I said, okay. And so then 3 days went by. I didn't do anything with it. I didn't really think about it much. And then Monday morning, I felt much better. You know, it's like you kind of get to that place and you feel better, felt much better. And so I called up. I said, okay. And she was real nice. And I said, what do you need? Just tell me, what do you need? She said, well, I need this, this, and that. So, okay. So I got it together in about 30 minutes, sent it in. And she said, okay, I've got everything. I'll call you with an answer when I have it. So I just let it go. So Wednesday morning, Hank and I were out playing golf. Good place to go. I was walking down the 18th hole. It was 10 o'clock in the morning, just finishing up our round. And my phone rang. And I picked it up, and she said, this is the loan officer. And she said, would you like the news? She's playing with me, you know, toying with me, you know. And you could just see her smiling on the other end. She says, you're in, you've got it. You've got it. I said, yes. And I said, thank you. I'm glad you told me on the 18th hole. So it wouldn't distract me too much. So then that's how it works.